G'day guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to talk about my strategy for shooting sambar during this upcoming summer. Well, fuck my ass and call me Sally. Now, I'm going to caveat all of this at the start with, I'm not a very good hunter, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm just going to show you what my plan is and how I got to that plan to start with. So to help you understand my plan, you kind of need to understand the lay of the land, right? So I've drawn this shitty map because I don't want to show you the actual map because you'll know where I'm hunting, because it's actually somewhat of a semi-popular / nearby spot. And I don't want you shooting my fucking deer. So I've drawn this really shitty topographical map. Now just to orientate yourselves to it, it is orientated north, as denoted by the north point. We have the blue lines indicate our re-entrance and creek lines. Our red lines indicate our contour lines. If you don't know how to read contour lines, I'm sorry. It's just how I know how to read maps. So I'm gonna have to use contour lines. All that's showing you is that towards the north we have a hill, and it goes down into not a hill. The green patches that I've hatched in, they are the most prominent open areas. There's one at the top of the hill, there's one at the bottom of the hill. We have black dotted lines, they are the prominent game trails. They're not in the exact spot they actually are, and there's a hell of a lot more of them, but that just gives you an idea of where the game are mostly moving. And then the solid black line down the bottom right-hand corner, that is a disused motorbike track. We have marked on here cam at the top, then we have cam 1, cam 2, cam 3, and cam 4. Cam 3 and cam 4 are backwards because when I put the cameras in, and yes I do number my cameras, I put in 4 thinking it was 3. So anyway, that's why they're backwards. And then we have another checkpoint there called Dead Deer. You get no points for figuring out why it's called Dead Deer. If you want to see the video of that deer getting shot, I will link it up that side, whichever fucking side it goes, and you can go and watch that video. Obviously, this is the area I hunt the most. It's my local area, and generally when I hunt this with my Yag Terrier. And I flush the deer because it's very, very thick in here. Like, it's ridiculously thick. In some places you'd be lucky to see 5-10 meters in front of you. Other places it's about 20 to 30. And in very few spots you could maybe shoot 100 meters. So it's incredibly thick, and that's why not many people like hunting here, because really it's a bit shit. Now I got to the point where there's a lot of deer in there, but my dog, sometimes he'll go around the deer and flush them back towards me, which is hunky-dory. He's done that a couple of times. But a lot of the times, because it's so thick, he will lose them and the deer will just run away the other direction. He'll run about, I don't know, 50 meters before he breaks off the flush, and then he sits there and goes, well, I'm not going to bother chasing it anymore because you're too far behind me to shoot it. So he just sits down. So I decided that I was going to bang out the trail cameras and give that a bit of a go. Now, I've had trail cameras in this particular area a few times before, but I found it to be a little bit fruitless. You would get little bits here and there. So I really decided to analyze the ground, and I put cameras in a lot of different spots to try and figure out the main avenues they were walking on. Once I figured out, well, my idea was once I figure out where, like one spot where I've got them consistently, then I can figure out where they're going from there. So I figured the best place to start is probably the top of the hill. I didn't know whether they would be at the top of the hill during the day or the top of the hill during the night. I really wanted to figure that out because that would help me understand where they would be for the rest of the time. Obviously, I need to know where they are in the day so I can shoot them. So I decided to start at the top of the hill. So this re-entrant ends at the top of the hill. It's fairly easy to get into there because there is a main road not far from the top of this re-entrant. So I decided to start looking in there. Now, my dog had pushed a stag in this area not long before, and that's how I lost my GoPro. I've mentioned that before on the channel, so I'm sure you know the story. So I went in there and I put a camera up the top. So to my surprise, I actually had a fallow doe on camera. I'd never had fallow on camera in this area before. I had seen a couple of fallow once or twice over the last nearly 5 years, but never really, you know, I never shot one in there. I'd never really seen them too often. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. Anyway, I then at night time had a stag come through. Now this stag is by far the biggest of the stags, and there are 5 different stags, or spikers slash stags, in this particular area. And this is what I've been able to find out from piecing together all of these different cameras in different locations. So we'll circle back to the 5 deer at the end when we talk about who's who in the zoo. I had him a couple of times coming down, and it was early in the morning, still dark. So obviously I can't sit there and wait because 1, I'm not going to be able to get in there in the cover of darkness quietly, and 2, if it's still nighttime, you're not legally allowed to shoot, right? So that's a bit out from me. But I know that he is now, or I know that deer are now heading down this re-entrant, right? So then I decide to go a little bit further down, and a few hundred meters further down the re-entrant is a wallow. So it's quite steep, it comes down, and then it sort of peters out a little bit, goes a little bit flat, and it holds a fair bit of water, a lot of mud. And I wish I really had the footage. I did have footage of stags in this wallow from a few years ago. Hard drive shit itself and I've lost that footage. But I have had stags in this wallow before, so I decided, let's put a camera in there again. Now, earlier in the year, I posted a video on YouTube of this stag getting spooked. Now, this particular stag is the one that I have had the most interactions with. I have pushed him probably 3 or 4 times off my dog, and never been able to get the shot on. So this is the one that I've really been targeting all year. He's a bit jumpy and he doesn't get on camera all of that often compared to the other ones, but we will see him pop up a couple of times. I put a camera in this wallow, and this is camera 1 on our map. Now from that I was able to ascertain that in the evenings I had a hind and her fawn coming up from the low ground. So she had been lower than this during the day, and then in the evenings she was walking uphill, presumably to the wallow, to, I don't know, mud up and or drink some water potentially. And then in the early hours of the morning I had Spiker and the stag heading downhill. So I knew that now I needed to look lower than that, because this is still not in shooting light and it's also a pain in the ass to get into. So getting in there in the cover of darkness is a bit of a pain in the ass, unless you like went there and camped overnight, which realistically I'm not going to do. So then I decided to whack cameras down further below the wallow, right? So I only had 2 cameras at the time. I went and bought 2 more King's cameras. Now the new King's cameras, as you'll see when we look at the footage, is a hell of a lot better. So I had seen some deer tracks down in this re-entrant lower than camera 1. So I put one in there, which is on this map, camera 2. Over the space of 3 weeks, that had 0 deer in it. So I was able to ascertain that they are definitely, when they're coming down south of camera 1, the wallow, they're not continuing down the creek line. Now they could be up above on either side, because obviously the creek line's down at a dip, and they could be up above where the camera's not pointing. However, we'll be able to figure out where they're going as we go along. So camera 2 was a bust, so I know they're not coming down that direction. Now below camera 2, as we hit these creek intersections, we have this open ground at the bottom here. Now, there have been deer shot out in the open ground before, but that's generally only when it's really, really misty and or rainy. They'll be out in that open ground. Generally, you don't really see them out in the open ground, and all of the ground between the bottom of this hill, which is on our eastern side as we're looking at it, and down towards our re-entrance, that is stupidly thick, and I've nicknamed it Black Forest because it is so thick and claustrophobic and creepy in there, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Now, I've had cameras in there before, and there's so many game trails, it's hard to pick, you know, which game trails you put the camera on. I've had cameras in there on one game trail for over a month and had nothing. And then in a game trail that's not even 10 meters away, I've had deer on that one on a different camera. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass area. And because there are so many game trails, yeah, I don't have enough cameras to cover every single game trail. So then I figured, well, where do all these game trails kind of lead? And they kind of lead to this other really small re-entrant, which isn't really a re-entrant. I mean, it is because it's a fold in the ground, but it doesn't hold water. Bit of a weird spot, but I figured, hey, well, if they're all going to be heading downhill, they're probably going to be heading to water, and the closest water is down the creek further. So if they're coming through Black Forest, then they're probably going to go past this area. So I put a camera in there, and I put a camera down the very bottom on the biggest pool of water in the creek. Now, I had a camera in there at the start of the year when the Sambar were in velvet, and I had two on there. I had this small spike and this other larger deer. So after a couple of weeks, I've gone back in there and I've pulled the cards. I've left the cameras out there, so they're currently out there as the time you're watching this right now. I pulled these cards this morning, so let's start building our picture. Up at camera one, we've had a spike, and we've had our second biggest deer, so the mid boy. Then down at camera three, down the bottom, we've had now this one. I have a feeling it's just a regressed stag because of how big he is in the body. When you compare him on camera to other deer, he seems a hell of a lot bigger than some of the spikers. So I think that he is an old boy, and he has regressed in his antlers because he is bigger in body than the one with the biggest antlers out there. It's hard to tell though, cameras can be deceiving. So I've had him down at the bottom there at camera three. And then also down at camera three, down the bottom, we've got the hind and her fawn. Now, she will pop up in every single one of these cameras. She just moves around. Now, she is the only hind that I've had on camera. And I feel like because in this particular area, a lot of people go there and everyone shoots the first deer they see, which is perfectly fine. That's what they're there for. They're a game animal. They were introduced to be shot. However, a lot of people shoot the hinds, so I feel like we have a bit of a population imbalance here where we have too many stags and not enough hinds. Because if there were more hinds, I would have more hinds on camera, I feel, and I only ever have this girl and her fawn. In this particular system, I think she's the only one. Camera 4 is at the very edge of the Black Forest, right? So it's where we go from this Black Forest area to, like, it's still thick, but it's kind of thinner, different type of trees, heads down into these creek lines. Now, because we haven't had these other deer down at camera 3, so in the water hole, it leads me to believe that they are sticking around either in Black Forest or just below it, potentially venturing into the open ground to feed. But this is all during the day, mind you. So they're way up the hill at night time, and then during the day, they're nice and low. So at camera 4, we've had the hind come through. We've had this regressed boy / spiker, whatever we're calling him. We had a fallow spiker here, which was actually quite interesting. As I said, because I don't normally see fallow in this area very much. I'd seen, in 5 years of hunting it, I'd probably seen 3 fallow, and all of those fallow were the start of this year. I'd never seen one before that, although I had been told they were in there. And then I saw 3, one just below where this camera currently is sitting. I pushed one essentially in the creek line, and then a few months later, I pushed 2 in the next system over, essentially. But now we have a spiker on camera, and he's down the bottom here, which is pretty cool to see. He's in velvet. He's a bit of a mongoloid head. You can see one side's bigger than the other, and he's a bit weird and droopy, which is what I've been told most of the fallow are like around here. They're a bit shit, is what it is. Then we've got our big boy, right, dead center during the day, about 7:30 in the morning. There he is, just chill banging. So that is excellent to see. So now I kind of know where I want to sit, where this camera is on the, as I said, the edge of the Black Forest. There's an area I can sit in. I can get shots, and the longest you would get a shot there is probably 20 meters. So I'm not going to take the terrier. If I do take a dog, it'll be my pointer, or I might just go by myself just to keep the signature low and be able to keep quiet, although my pointer is really good and she will just sit there. And I'll want this deer to come in through to me. Now, from looking at the camera, pretty much every deer has been here. So we've had the big boy. We haven't had the mid-sized boy, but we've had the long spiker, and we've had the regressed. The deer that are in the area, let's talk about the 5 punters, right? So we have this very small, and he looks scrawny, this very small spiker. Now, I hadn't seen him before I got him on camera from about a week ago. I don't know where he's come from. It feels like he may have come from another system over to this one. He's very scrawny in the body. He looks real scruffy, and he has very small spikes. Then we have this regressed one, which is very big in the body, but very short and fat, stumpy antlers. So I think he is probably an old regressed deer. Then we have our long spike. So he is a single sticks on his head, but no branches. So we have no brow tines and we have no forks at the end. He's just sticks, but long sticks. So he was the one we had on camera at the start of the year when he was in velvet. And now we've had him on camera a couple of times as well. Then we have our mid stag, or the smaller of the two actual stags. He is the one that I have bumped the most times, and I feel like I'm pretty sure where his beds are. I've had the dog push him a couple of times. I've nearly had him a couple of times, and if you've heard any of my other hunting stories throughout this year, as I've thrown them randomly into videos, he's been the one that I've been chasing. Then we have the big boy, who is fairly new to me. I've only been starting to see him around in the last month or two. So he is definitely the prize of all of the five. However, I would not be upset with either him or the mid stag. So the strategy, now I know where they're heading. I know they're coming down here. I know kind of the game trails they're going to take. I know where they're going to come through during legal shooting light, which is the biggest key here, because I'm not a fucking poacher. So now what I really need to do is I need to get in there. I kind of want to build a hide, because I want to be able to get in there and sit down where I've got cover. I have somewhere to rest my rifle for shooting, and I have good concealment because I don't want to spook the deer. If I want them to be able to walk straight into where I am, and then I want to shoot. Now, which gun am I going to use? Now, I have plenty of guns that I deer hunt with. I've got my side-by-side shotgun that I'm shooting slugs out of. I won't be using that because I use that mainly if I'm just in the really thick stuff and I'm trying to get the dog to stand them up and they're 10 meters away. My 358 Winchester, I currently don't have a scope on, and I want to have a scope for this particular ambush because just in case I need to look through the trees at a little bit further distance, I want to have a scope on. So the 358's out because I currently don't have a scope. I'm trying to source a Leupold 2-7 by 33. If you have one you want to get rid of, leave me a message. I will buy it off you, unless you want like $1 million for it. I've got my 7 Rem mag. Now my 7 Rem mag is kind of my go-to fallow gun. At the moment, I would be happy to shoot a sample with 7 Rem mag, don't get me wrong, but the bullets I have loaded at the moment are ELDXs, and at close range they are fucking terrible. I'd shot a fallow at the start of the year or earlier this year with the 7 Rem mag. In fact, I shot 2, and the ELDX does not perform very well as soon as it touches the bone at that close range going that fast, and I'm pushing them 3,000 feet per second, something like that. They're completely disintegrating, not getting very much penetration at all. So the 7 Rem mag is out until I can load some better bullets. I do have a couple of boxes of 139 grain monolithic bullets. They will probably be fine. Haven't got them loaded yet, haven't done load development, so I'm not going to use 7 Rem mag. So the gun I'm going to use for this is going to be my Zastava M70 9.3 by 62. Well and truly enough punch for a Sambar stag. And it has a scope on it. I've got a 3-9 Leupold on that. So that gun is going to be the gun that I'm going to use for this ambushing. I'm going to build a hide. I'm going to sit in there from as early as I can get out there, and I'm going to wait for the deer to come through. It might take me a few tries to actually get one because they're not coming through this particular spot every single morning, but we'll see how we go. Now, obviously, I have work, so I can't just like pop on out there willy bloody nilly. When I am able to get out there, that's my plan. As I said at the start of the video, I'm pretty shit at hunting. I don't really know what I'm doing. So if you want to leave me some pointers, please feel free in the comments to let me know your view, and if you had this layout, how would you hunt this stag? Anyway, I hope you all got something out of that. I'm definitely learning a lot by plotting all this out, and I do like sharing my hunting experiences with all of you guys. So I'll leave it at that. I'll be putting up some updates on social media as they occur, and if I manage to, get the stag on the ground, potentially there'll be a follow-up video. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just put it on Instagram. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and hooroo.